I read 10 books and had one potentially controversial DNF, so let's talk about them. Hi, welcome back to my channel. I am Katie. I am a crime and thriller girly primarily who does occasionally branch out, and it's June reading wrap-up time. We are officially halfway through the year. Now, I do intend to film a let's chat about the first 6 months, but that may not come out till towards the end of July. I am jam-packed with my work schedule at the moment. At time of recording this, I have 2 weeks left to work, and then I have 6 weeks off where I can really prioritise some good quality content. And yeah, this is my June reading wrap-up video and I'm already off on a tangent. Fair play. But yeah, so this video, we're going to talk about all things, books I read, my opinions, my ratings, what the books are about, so I can convince you to add them to your TBR, because I had quite an interesting month. I'll go into the stats in a minute, but firstly, boring stuff out the way as always. I'm back making content and it's only going to get better. So if you want to stick around, it would mean the world if you would hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and yeah, come along with me. Let's talk about the videos, guys. And yeah, it's been a month. Not read as much as I normally do, but before you come at me in the comments, that is a bit of fun. I have read less than usual. Not many, but still less than usual. But we're going to talk about it a bit more. But yeah, let's get into it. So let's go into the stats. I will put up like the story graphic that I usually use. However, I won't go into full detail about that. But I read a total of 10 books and DNF'd 1. Out of those 10 that I did read, 4 of them were physical, whether that was from the library or out of my own TBR. 2 of them were ARC releases, which we will go into in a minute. I read 4 audiobooks in June. I think that tells you that my work schedule is picking up a little bit, because I listen to audio when I'm on my planning time. However, that has reduced this term, so normally I have the total of a day out, whereas I've only had half. But I think I've been wanting to do more things like colouring, so that's why the audio is increased. And like I said, we've had that one DNF. Now, I've had a mix of genres this month. I've definitely had quite a few crime and thriller. I've had historical fiction in there, and I've had a YA fantasy as well. So I will talk about those. So I've had a mixed bag of genre. I've had one surprise love and now new author kind of by author of a backlist I want to add to my TBR. But yeah, we've ranged as well from obviously the DNF up to a 5-star read. Now, it won't show the 5-star read on the graphic. I do need to update my rating, because when I first rated it, I'll talk about later, but when I first rated it, I didn't give it 5, but I've done nothing but think about that book since I finished it. If you've been over on my other socials, you'll probably know which book that is. But yeah, but we've had actually a really good month, guys, so let's get into it a bit more, talk about what the books are about, what I rated them, and yeah, maybe I can convince you to add some of these to your TBR. Right, let's get the negativity out of the room first. Let's talk about my DNF. Now, I said this could be controversial, but actually when I put out a plea as to whether to continue, I don't think it's going to be as controversial as I personally thought, but it is The Family Remains by Lisa Jewell, and I DNF'd at 150 pages, so I did give this a good chunk. Now, I picked up The Family Upstairs probably 4 years ago or something now, way before I joined Book Talk. Lisa Jewell was one of those authors that I enjoyed pre-Book Talk, haven't actually picked up much since Book Talk. However, I've been wanting to pick up the second book in the series because, as I've probably mentioned, it's kind of like take a shot every time I say this probably at this point. I'm going to Harrogate this month. I feel like I never stop saying it. And I want Lisa Jewell to sign some of my books. Now, I picked up this because I loved The Family Upstairs. However, 150 pages in, I don't actually know what's going on, what's happened. Now, someone who I am meeting there at Harrogate, I have been chatting to her about this book, and she did say that it does get better towards the end, but I have so many books on my TBR that do I really want to commit any more time to a book that I'm just not in love with? And that does break my heart. But it follows D.I. Samuel Owusu, I probably slated that, I do apologise, quickly sends the bag for forensic examination, bones of those of a young woman killed by a blow to the head many years ago. Also, inside the bag is a trail of clues which leads the DI to a mansion in Chelsea where 30 years previously 3 people lay dead while a baby upstairs waited for someone to pick her up. I'm assuming this was the other thing, I couldn't remember The Family Upstairs to know how much this related, but apparently it's book 2. 4 deaths, an unsolved mystery, and a family whose secrets can't stay buried. This was way too much to and fro for me, and everything that was in that blurb I haven't seen much of, so unfortunately it was a DNF, but that's the negativity out of the way. Don't let me de-influence you as such, but I think a lot of people had a similar consensus, but apparently it gets better towards the end, so if you don't mind a slow burn, maybe this might be an okay add to your TBR, but personally for me, I had too many books on my TBR to read. And complete side note, actually, I am going to have a look back at my June TBR and see which of the books I actually managed to stick to, because I can tell you now I didn't read all my books on my June TBR. So at the end, once I've gone through everything I have read, I'll tell you what I wanted to read and hadn't got to. But that's a side note. But yeah, first DNF. Right, going forward now, these books are going to be in the order in which I read them within the month. So the first book I'm going to talk to you about is One of the Family by Mark Edwards. This was a pre-release that released at the middle of June sometime, I believe. My second Mark Edwards, and I did rate this 4 stars. So this, like I said, was a pre-release. I did struggle to read it because NetGalley sent me a PDF to my Kindle, not an EPUB. A common thing going. I think I've ranted on older videos about it, so I'm not going to go into it again. But yeah, One of the Family. This follows, I can't remember the male main character's name, but basically he's going to meet his girlfriend's family for the first time, apart from all is not that scenes, and then a member of the family actually turns up dead. And yeah, it was a bit absurd, but actually at the same time, I did really enjoy it. I was hooked on it. And yeah, I was committed to finding out what the book was about. The chapters were reasonably lengthed, and yeah, it did get a bit bizarre in the middle, and part of me was screaming, "Get out now!" But I have noticed that about Mark Edwards' writing, so this isn't actually the first Mark Edwards on my list for June. However, it dropped the star because I think of a bit too muchness about it. That being said, I'm meeting Mark Edwards anyway, and he's commented on the review himself. His writing is really good. Like, you'll find yourself hating the characters so much because they're so well written. You are feeling how you are meant to feel about those characters, and I think that's a really important point to get across. So yeah, I did enjoy this. I enjoyed it way more than The Wasp Trap as well. So that kind of gives you a bit of an insight. So maybe I need to go and look at his backlist, but watch the space for the rest of the video because you'll see another book I've read by him. Next up, and my first audiobook pick of the month, was Body of Lies by Joe Callahan, and this came with a 4.25 star rating. This is book 4 in the Cat and Locke series, and this whole series generally follows Cat and Locke. So Cat is a human detective, which sounds really bizarre for me to say, but Locke is in fact an AI detective. Now, I can't go too much into this, but basically an MP is quite brutally murdered, and it is up to the team to try and solve it. And this is quite complicated. There are other things underlying within the book that follow on through the series. So if you aren't aware of the series, like I said, 4 books. You have In the Blink of an Eye is book 1, Leave No Trace is book 2, Human Remains is book 3, and A Body of Lies is book 4. And this is the final book in the series. And I think the way Joe Callahan wrote this, it was really easy to follow. As I said, I've done this series in audio. I love that Locke sounds so monotone, which is exactly how he should as an AI detective, and I found it quite funny. I think the dynamic between the two are fantastic, and this was just full of drama, and I really enjoyed it. I listened to this quite quickly as well, and yeah, I would really recommend this series. And since I actually started reading these, I think they've come on Kindle Unlimited as well, so this is an even bigger sign for you to do it. I was a bit sceptical because of the AI concept on this, but actually I really enjoyed it, and I think it was a really insightful look into AI, and it kind of addressed a few issues that I think a lot of people are currently having with AI. So yeah, absolutely, I did enjoy this. Not quite the 5-star feel that I wanted it to give, but I did enjoy it, and I would definitely recommend that you add this series to your TBR. Next up, and my other ARC copy of the month, was My Sister's Secret by Jane Corrie, and I rated this 4 stars, so this is actually my first Jane Corrie book. I do have I Died on a Tuesday on my TBR. I was kindly gifted this by Penguin Books. I couldn't get the full thing out. And this follows, basically, there is the 2 sisters who, one of them is currently in a psychiatric hospital, and something has happened to them many, many, many years ago, and they're trying to keep the secret with the mother. However, in comes this psychiatrist who, I think Amy is the character. Yeah, Amy starts confiding in her, and this is when it kind of turns a bit dark. And on the back of the book, it does say, 3's a crowd and 1 of them has to go. Now, for me, this is the massive, wow. This was very bizarre, but very intriguing. Like, I was very intrigued to see where this went. This was a bit of a psycho thing. However, the chapters were exceptionally short. I think for me, it could have been a little bit shorter, and I think that's a personal preference. Just because it went on a bit. I can't say why, because that will ruin kind of what happens within the book. But generally, as a first Jane Corrie, it has made me want to pick up more, and I Died on a Tuesday is definitely going on my TBR. This released in the middle of June, and I'm so grateful to have received it. I can't remember if I applied for it. I went through a bit of an applying spree a while ago, and I get declined quite a lot for ARCs. So it's very rare I get physical ARCs, so I'm forever grateful when I do. But I think I apply and then just they fall out of my mind because I don't expect to get them at all. So this was a very nice surprise in the post, and I would recommend you add it to your TBR. If you haven't read a Jane Corrie, definitely give this a go. Like I said, short chapters. I mean, let me tell you, there are 148 chapters in this book, guys. That tells you how short the chapters are, and that's at 400 and something pages, 462 pages. I read this pretty quickly, and yeah, I enjoyed it, and basically the moral of the story is add this to your TBR. Next up, and another audiobook pick, was The Satsuma Complex by Bob Mortimer, and I rated this 2.5 stars. Now, I actually spoke to a friend at work about this book, and she agreed with me that it's readable, but it's nothing groundbreaking. So I can't remember what genre this has been labelled as. It's a pretty short book, and it basically follows a main character who meets this woman, I think by accident, and basically she leaves this book behind called The Satsuma Complex. I feel like it's a bit of a mystery book, but I just didn't feel like inclined to keep picking it up, even in audio. I liked the premise of it, which is why it's a 2.5, but I can't, if I'm being honest with you, I can't actually tell you what really happened because it left my mind the second I finished it. It was on ×2 speed to get it done, and yeah, I don't know. I've heard they're really good for just if you want something a bit mindless, which sounds awful, and I do feel sorry for Bob Mortimer because, yeah, it's just not for me. I think I struggled anyway with cozy mysteries, and I think I went in with a bit too high expectation. But yeah, if you want something a bit quick, easy to get your goal up, maybe give it a go. If anyone has read these, please let me know, because there's quite a few, I believe, by Bob Mortimer that are of a similar thing. My friend at work has been talking about them and said she just needs something to... I'm going to sound really rude now because I've just realised what she said to me. That she needs something to help her go to sleep on a night that's not too gripping, and I think these are those. They're cosy, aren't they? So yeah, I'd be intrigued to know other people's thoughts on it, but for me, it just wasn't my cup of tea. Now, this was the unexpected addition to my TBR, however, with good reason. So I picked up The Women by Kristen Hanna. Now, I actually rated this initially 4.5, but I have indeed increased it to 5 stars. This was a fantastic read. So this was my in-person book club pick. We all said we've all been picking thriller and sticking within our comfort zone because we are all generally thriller readers or romance readers. And I had seen so many people hype about this that I said, why don't we give it a go? Could I get hold of it anywhere? No. So I got it on Amazon. And yeah, I inhaled this. I actually hit a bit of a slump in June where I did not, no thriller was hitting the point for me. So we'd had The Satsuma Complex, we'd had The Family Remains, and every book I was reading was kind of just good. Nothing was like putting my jaw on the floor, and I thought maybe I just need to switch up my genre. I've read one too many thriller books. And oh my God, did this get me out of my slump. I inhaled this. Even with being at work, I just kept picking it up and picking it up. So this is a historical fiction book, and it's set around the Vietnam War. And basically, one guy turns around to the main character and says to her, not all heroes wear capes. And that kind of made her, like, turn around. I'm sure that's what he said. Oh, women can be heroes too, sorry. So she goes to the war to be nurses, but bearing in mind when this is set, which I believe is in the 60s, she comes back from Vietnam and she's trying to adjust to life after the war. I had so much anxiety reading this. I cried more times than you care to count. And this had me hitting so many emotions I never thought I would, from anger for the women to upset, because there is so much loss, and I do think you need to check your trigger warnings with this. But this had me absolutely enthralled, and I was in awe of this book. There are so many interesting topics that are tackled within this, and I think it's really important that these things are talked about because women did not have the same rights that they do now. And I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but for me, it's actually quite sad, and you forget that this was even a thing. And like, she was coming back from the war and people were going, well, you didn't go to the war, men go to war, you didn't fight, it don't count, you can't have PTSD because you weren't part of it, and all this help she was trying to get wasn't there. But behind all that are the beautiful friendships, the relationships, and yeah, you will feel everything within this book. If you want to change up of genre, absolutely add this to your TBR. Or if you just like historical fiction, haven't tried a Kristen Hanna, then absolutely. The one thing I need to know now, guys, is which Kristen Hanna do I need to pick up next? I have just been looking and there are so many different Kristen Hannas on that list, and I want to pick them up in audio, but I'm scared to, because when I'm at work I listen to audio and I don't want to just suddenly burst into tears. So I'm a bit unsure about whether to hold out and go and see if the library has any Kristen Hanna. But yeah, basically, add this to your TBR because this is stunning and one of my favourite books of the year so far. And yeah, I haven't cried at a book in a hot minute, so yeah, I don't cry at books, guys. So if you want an emotional roller coaster, an eye-opening book filled with love, loss and friendship, then absolutely add this to your TBR. My next audiobook pick was The Kill List by Nadine Matheson, and I rated this 4.25. So this is book 3 in the D.I. Henley series. So for context, book 1 is The Jigsaw Man, book 2 is The Binding Room, and this is book 3. And basically this follows... oh my gosh, how have I forgotten? This follows 5 shocking murders, and basically they come across a guy who is going through his kill list. However, a guy was convicted of this, and it is coming to light that he was wrongfully convicted and he is about to be released. And it's falling on a detective who has since retired and unfortunately, killed himself. I don't know if I can say that so brutally. And he cannot defend himself as to what actually happened. So it's down to D.I. Henley and the team to try and solve that. I did really enjoy the premise of this. Now, I switched to audio for this because get ready with your shots. I'm going to Harrogate in July and I am going to be meeting Nadine Matheson, so I do want her to sign the series. And I had only read The Jigsaw Man. It keeps reminding me I need to replace The Jigsaw Man because the pages are falling out. So yeah, I did enjoy this. It's better than The Binding Room, but nothing is beating The Jigsaw Man at the moment. And yeah, but yeah, I added it to my TBR. I did enjoy it. I would recommend the series. And like I said, start with The Jigsaw Man. Again, I think all of these are on Kindle Unlimited apart from the most recent release. So it's your sign to give them a read, or I got all of mine available on BookBeat. I should probably mention that wasn't ad PR. I use BookBeat for all of my books, occasionally Spotify in the library if I'm struggling, but you get a good majority of books on BookBeat. Not ad PR, just something I use and will quite happily talk about with no kind of feedback for anything that I say. Anyway, next book I want to talk to you about is Here to Stay by Mark Edwards, and I rated this 4 stars. So this was Chris's book club pick. So Chris runs Bookmarked by Chris, and he also runs a book club. It's my first book club box from him, and I absolutely loved it. It came with so many goodies, and I was so excited to get stuck into this, and the discussion we had was very interesting. This, purely the 4-star rating, is down to the characters. So I've just mentioned about one of the family. You think I didn't like them? I felt utter fury for the parents in this book. So this basically follows Elliot, who meets this woman very randomly who comes looking around a garden, and she basically comes and they end up getting married after a few months. Her parents are at a bit of a sticky point and asked to stay. They are then the tenants from hell and will not leave. Now this just irritated me because the reason it dropped a star, like, I look back and think, bloody hell, what a good writer to be able to write such infuriating characters. And even Mark Edwards agreed with me that they are probably the most unlikable people you'll ever meet. The way they treated Elliot and Gemma, I had so many suspicions over all of the characters. Some of the things that were happening was a bit ridiculous. And I think for me, it got a little bit too ridiculous, but to the point that I was so relieved. I've never felt so much happiness at the end of a book, and I'm going to sound like an absolute psycho if you ever read this. But yeah, the characters are so unlikable. I loved Elliot and I felt really sorry for him, but the parents, they needed to bugger off and go somewhere else because they absolutely peeved me off to no end. To the point that it just irritated the hell out of me. And like I said, that is down to fantastic writing by Mark Edwards. I have already said I'm meeting him. I'm not going to say the words, so y'all don't need to take a shot. But I don't know why that went American. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Easy to read. I switched between Kindle and physical. But again, short chapters, easy to follow. And yeah, jaw-dropping at times, but bloody irritating throughout. Next up, and my subscriber book club pick was Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stevens, and I rated this 3.75. So this was a new one for me. I have seen it all over my FYP, and everybody told me I would absolutely love this. Now, I'm not saying I didn't. However, for me, parts of this were just a little bit too, confusing. So basically, it follows two characters who it follows from the point of view of Evelyn. But every time she gets to the day before, the week before her 18th birthday, she's killed and she goes back to starting again. And she keeps going through all these lives. So I think the points of view are basically from all these different lives where we meet where she dies, and it goes back to try and find the source of it. There is a love story within that, but for me, I think I was really invested in the 2022 point, and the last 30% of the book for me was wonderful. It was beautiful, and I think that's why it was so close to a 4. But I nearly DNF'd it, and it was just because I didn't really understand what I was reading. The work tiredness was kicking in at this point as well, so I find it really hard to commit to a book that needs so much brain power when I'm working. And yeah, for me it was just a little bit confusing, but I loved the premise. Once I understood it, I kind of did love the premise of it, but I think I just loved the storyline that was running throughout the 2022, and that could have quite happily kept me reading. And then when it got to the end and things started to get explained and the action kicked in, I did really enjoy this. So it's not a terrible read, and I think if you're more to this genre and can understand the premise of the book, I think it's brilliant. So I think if a lot of people have loved this, I think it's just a me problem. And yeah, still enjoyed it, still was easy to follow, and yeah, I've just said easy to follow, no it's not, but easy to follow once you understand it. I think for me, I'm just a bit slow, and with work tired, it wasn't for me. But nonetheless, I got to the end of it, glad I did, because the ending was brilliant. And yeah, I'm not going to say any more about it, but I would add it to your TBR if it's your genre. Maybe if you're a bit like me and easily confused, maybe don't. Next up, and my last audiobook pick of the month was The Shadow Carver by Nadine Matheson. This is book 4 in the D.I. Helen series, and I rated this 3.75. So as I've just said, this was an audiobook pick, so this may be a bit of a bad review because I may have got it completely misunderstood because I was doing other things while listening to it. So like I've just said, this is book 4. I can't really tell you what it's about. I remember there being talks of people being scalped in the book, but I just didn't find this as easy to follow. And normally I can follow a book really well. This may be something I revisit and read physically to see if I enjoy it as much, because I can't actually recall anything that happened, so I will be able to do that. But again, it follows D.I. Henley and the continuation. There is a lot of character development throughout this series. Now, I don't know if this is the last book in the series completely. It is the current up-to-date release. This isn't available on KU. I did say the rest of the series was. This, however, isn't, because I remember trying to look for the physical. However, maybe when it releases in paperback, or if it comes on the KU subscription, then I may have a look into it. But for me, I just was not as easy to follow. I didn't really know what was going on, and I didn't really understand the drama. I completely missed a plot twist, which then I went back and listened, and I was like, oh my god, how did I miss that? And I don't think it helped my book beat. I was literally ran out in the middle of it, so I managed to upgrade my purchase, but it just kind of lost me the flow. When I actually committed some weekend time where I could actually listen to it properly, I realised I had missed a key bits, and it was good. The premise of it is good. I think maybe it's a me problem that I didn't listen to it with my full attention on it. I think I need to go back to picking romance up for audio, because they don't need as much brain power, and they're easier to follow in audio. That might be a me problem. But if you've read The Shadow Carver, I've heard a few people really highly rate it, so I feel like I need to reread it. So watch this space. It may become a reread towards the end of the year, but yeah, for me in the moment as an audio, not the best, but it was a good book nonetheless. Guys, if you've made it this far, well done, because I feel like I've chunted on at you with a load of random crap throughout this video. However, the last book of the month that I read was I Spy by C.M. Ewan. Now, I committed some hours to get an extra book in at the end of the month, so I was so close to finishing Our Infinite Fates, and I knew I would on my Sunday live. However, my Sunday live was 2 days before the end of the month. However, those 2 days I was working, so I was never going to read a whole book in that time. However, the guys on TikTok picked this for me, and what a bloody good job they did. So this follows a family who are travelling back from Paris. It's the dad, the daughter, and the stepdaughter, and he notices something really suspicious on the train. The whole of this book is set over 3 hours. It has 3 points of view. It has the point of view of the husband, point of view of the wife who's not with them, and the point of view of the stepdaughter. This was on the edge of your seat amazing. I don't think I've told you what I've rated it. I rated it 4.5. I think it could have been a tad shorter, but that's a personal thing. The chapters were incredibly short, well over 100 chapters in this book, and despite it being set over 3 hours, you just wanted to keep reading. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This is actually my first CMU, and this book was calling at me for a hot minute. I saw it on my book shelves in the supermarket and I was like, do I buy it? Do I buy it? And then it came on a 99p Kindle deal. So I actually primarily read this on my Kindle. I think it helped with the pace of the book. I did keep flicking between the two though, and I will be taking this to Harrogate. Take your shot. So that's always a good sign too. So yeah, absolutely love this. We'll definitely be looking into another CMU and book. Honestly. And yeah, definitely my first but not my last, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. This is a must add to your TBR. I've been singing the praises of it all over TikTok, so absolutely add this to your TBR, because if you need something fast paced, on the edge of your seat, anxiety driven, add this one to your TBR. Right, I'm just looking at my June TBR now, and I actually didn't do that bad. So I thought I had a lot more books on my June TBR, and the only book that I didn't get to was That Night by Gillian McAllister, and you will see in my July TBR video that is to come that I have That Night on my July TBR. I just did not get a chance to get to it, but I've actually done better than I thought. I actually completely forgot that at the end of May, I didn't actually set myself too big a task for June, knowing that I was working the full month. That sounds horrific, doesn't it? Like I am a part-timer, I suppose. But yeah, I think because I knew the whole of June was like last term, busy, lots of assessments and targets and transitions, that I wouldn't get much time to read. So actually, I've set myself a really nice target there. I did actually read outside of what I planned. So the only book I didn't pick up was That Night by Gillian McAllister. So I think that's something to be impressed by, guys. So yeah, I didn't do too bad in the end, did I? That's a wrap, guys. That is my June reading wrap up. If you have made it this far, pop a heart emoji in the comments. But also let me know, what was your favourite read of June? Obviously mine was The Women, and oh my goodness, that book is still got a place rent-free in my head from reading it. So let me know your favourite read of June, and yeah, just let me know your thoughts and opinions, guys. I cannot wait to see what you've been reading in June. And as always, thank you so much for joining me, guys. If you could hit that subscribe button, it would mean the world. I am trying to get my content back out, and I'm hoping to spend 6 weeks of the summer working towards some better content to bring to you. But thank you for joining me, guys, and I will see you all on the next video.